yeah, I would go back and say that getting out of debt is really a key important goal. It really allows you to do things that you couldn't do, that other people can't do, and if you can somehow manage to not get it in the first place, and again, this too goes back to the very first thing that I discussed, where if you're not driven by status so much, I'm a normal guy. I'm as much driven as anybody. I mean, I'm not living in a bubble somewhere, but I'm not particularly people are going to look at me and just say oh, he's an ordinary guy. And when I say that I'm not a top end programmer or CEO or something like that, then of course then they have their own opinions about me, and I can't change those ideas, but I can be me, and and if I not try to be somebody that I'm not, and chase after status or try to have a lot of status, then I get authentic friends who themselves are not status seekers, and therefore I don't have to spend a whole lot of money. And again, going back to I'm not spending, I'm not driving up a whole bunch of debt. So that's it's just this nice circle of win-win-win for you and for all of us. And then we have real ability when you have cash. This is actually another thing that's really cool about this, which is that, your boss is breathing down your neck, right, every day, and your clients are in front of you, and they're chewing on you, and, maybe your vendors are chewing on you. I had three sets of people, right? I had my boss, I had my third parties, my vendors, and I had clients on top of that, and they're all, on me all the time. This is back when I was working in the software company. And when they're doing that, after a while, it gets really, really exhausting, and you think, well, I'm trapped. If you have a ton of debt and you haven't been able to sort of work that through, and you haven't saved up any money, then you're kind of trapped. But if you have a bunch of money, then you can say things, back to your boss, things like, I was in meetings just before I left, and they said, well, we want you to do this project, and I'm like, nah, not really interested. Yeah, and they're like looking at me, all wide-eyed, right? And because I got younger coworkers with me, they're like, oh, I'll take that job, right? They'll leap in front because they want to move forward in their career, and I'm like, great, no problem, do it.
Right.
So you have a lot of flexibility. That's one of the key great things about that. You have flexibility in your ability to choose jobs, flexibility with your boss. Well, some. But thing is that the ultimate trump card, of course, is they say you're fired, right? And you're like, fine. I'll go get another job, and it won't kill me because I can take a year off to do that, to find the right job that I want to do that fits me, versus like, oh my God, I got to scramble and find a job this very second. So
right, exactly.
Yeah,
and that's one of the biggest things that Dave Ramsey also preaches too, is that if you have flexibility, financial flexibility, and he teaches 3 to 6 months of an emergency fund. So when something happens, you don't have a money problem. You just go to that emergency fund, which you have built up. And I'm not there yet, but
yeah,
that's my driving too. So then when you come to a job and you don't like being there, and even morally, there's some people that work jobs that morally they know is wrong, and they know they're doing things that they probably shouldn't do, but you need your paycheck at the end of the week. But having that money available gives you so many different options. And yeah, you could just come in and say, thanks, but no thanks. I'm gonna move on.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I think that this is one of those things that, and again, I would say this isn't one of my top 3 keys. Maybe this is the 4th key. And that is, if you can get to 6 months of saving, and I admit right now, for people who don't have full-time jobs or maybe trying to get to their career, but they're not there yet, it's been tough the last 10 years. I had a lot of good luck, and I was able to stay in my job for, a lot of that period, but I understand and see that, people are having a real hard time. They've gone and gotten degrees and whatnot, and they just, they're really trying to make it to just the first rung. So some of these ideas are a little tough because this is like step 5, and they're not even at step 1 yet. But,
Right.
I would say step 1, if you can do it, is to try to save, maybe even more than 6 months, like a year. And really, one of the things that helped me do that early on was having, this wish list. And I created, and I'm sure Dave Ramsey has probably talked about this, you create a list like, okay, I want, a snowmobile, right? Let's just say, I want a snowmobile, right? And you put it on your wish list, right? And you don't go out and buy a snowmobile tomorrow. What you do is you put it on your wish list and you say, I'm going to come back to this wish list in 6 months or a year and still see if it's relevant and if I really want it. Maybe you do. Great. If you really do after a year, then yeah, sure, go buy it. If it's really that great. I mean, I've done that. There's a book I wanted. I wanted that book more than anything in the world, and I put it on my wish list, and 6 months later, I'm like, yeah, I want that book, so I went and I bought it. And the 5 other things on my wish list, they're gone.
Right.
If I didn't need them, then I don't need them. But saving money, try to get to a year if you can. And that's I know that's really tough for people. But if you can do that, you really have great flexibility. And just as you say, you can you can choose a job that not only is a better job, but also a job that has all the other benefits that you would want. Like maybe you're doing something like an overnight shift, and who wants to do that? Graveyard sucks. I've done it.
Yeah, me too.
Right. I mean, I think we've all had at one point or another. It's like, I can't tell you, that's just got to be the job itself wasn't even that bad, but doing overnight, that blows. So, then you can go to their boss and just say, I like doing this work, but, no, I don't want to do that. Maybe I'll come in at 7, maybe I'll take the afternoon shift and come in at 2 or something. But yeah, no, I'm not doing overnight anymore. And, they will say either that's okay or, maybe that isn't okay. And, I think if enough people did something like that, boy, that would really, start changing how companies approach their employees and how they try to retain them and so forth. So, I would say that would be a very good thing. But so credit cards is one key thing that I think is super important. The second one is, and I'll just give you this freebie. It's a kind of a super special secret, and that is that any way that you can automate savings is going to be incredibly important. So, and what works with this is direct deposit. Most companies, small companies less so, but most companies have direct deposit, right? They don't want to deal with checks. They don't want any of that garbage, right? Your money shows up at midnight on the 15th and the 1st, right? Do you have that?
I do, yes.
Yeah, see, okay, great. And it's free, of course, because they want you to, they don't want to deal with the checks. So what you do is you have the money coming in that's going in now, and what you do is you say, okay, well, I want a certain amount of dollars from this to go into another account. So you have maybe a savings account or a brokerage account or whatever, and you say, okay, if I'm getting $500 coming in every 2 weeks, I want, $50 or $100 to go over to this other account. And you want to do this on a 2-week basis so that after the first 2 or 3 paychecks, it becomes this thing that's like, okay, this paycheck was supposed to be $500, but now it's $400. The first 2 paychecks you're kind of paying. There's a little bit of pain there because you're expecting to have a certain amount of money and you don't. But you'll find that your actions, your spending actions change, and you force that change to happen. Those other dollars are kind of disappearing into this other account. You ignore the other account. You get your statement from your bank or whatever, your brokerage firm, and look at it and go, yeah, okay, great, and then you put it away. And you just keep doing that. And I'm sure that Dave has talked about this. This is, of course, the process of pay yourself first. Right? So that allows you to do that. Now, admittedly, if you have, a lot of student debt or a lot of debt, you're going to have to make a decision as to, which really is going to be coming first. But let's suppose that you get through your debt. At that point, actually, the amount of money you're putting into the debt, you can just put that same amount into savings. It doesn't look any different to you. And all of a sudden, boom, that starts making some money. And initially, it starts out really slow. And this goes back to how I got started. I started doing the same thing. I started, saving this cash, and it started out really slow. And then slowly over time, it started building. And once it got to about, I'd say $5,000 or so, I was like, oh, wait a minute. I don't want to just go and buy some car. Forget that. I want to see what this does. I want more. I want this to, really turn into something. There's got to be something cooler and bigger out there than just a car. Maybe I want the most amazing, cool vacation in Europe ever, right? Go to the 10 best hotels in Europe or something, right? $10,000 actually would do that. You could have the golden chariot sedan, someone walking you around all of Europe for $10,000. I don't know. Right. So, there were just things that I was like, I don't know what it is I want yet, but I know that it exists. So I'm just going to keep saving. And so you can then put your money, actually when you get to like $5,000, if you were to get to $5,000, I would say open a brokerage account and then start putting your money in mutual funds, because that's where you're going to start, that's where the money's going to really start to grow. And remember that a mutual fund or an exchange-traded fund, those are two common things that one can buy. Those are little slices of a pie that has, hundreds or thousands of different companies in it. Now, by owning those, you're an owner. You're the guy owning the cafe, and that's a really cool place to be, right? Because then you don't have to do anything. The money just makes money, and you don't have to do anything. It just works. And that's the coolest thing ever, the coolest secret ever that millionaires never want to tell anybody. It's like, yeah, if you own these things, it's diversified, it has lower risk. If you buy one stock, yeah, it could go out of business, and that's where everyone gets scared and the risk question comes into play. But if you have, a mutual fund or a piece of mutual fund and a piece of an exchange-traded fund, I use them kind of interchangeably, then, yeah, you own pieces of these companies, and therefore there's diversification, and so if something goes down, something else will go up and so forth. So that's I think the third key that I use there. So did you have a question for me at this point, or?
Yeah, sure. So let's talk about, let me go back to, so let's talk about when did you know that you were going to be a millionaire, or when you were close?
Sure. So there were a couple of milestones that I didn't really even know were milestones. It's kind of funny how I was doing this, and some of it was focused, and I was like, yeah, I'm doing this, I know what I'm doing, and other parts of this were like, this just seems kind of right, so I'm just going to do this. The first one probably occurred in 2011 to 2012. I had hit about $600,000, and I was like, oh, that's really cool, because, based on how stocks move and what kind of returns that you can get for them, that puts $1 million about 5 years away at that point. And sure enough, the point at which I actually did hit $1 million was 2014. I was 49, and then 2015, about a year later, 2015, a year later, in my retirement account, I hit $1 million. And there's actually a super cool thing about this, which is that the securities, the stocks and mutual funds and so forth, in the retirement account that's $1 million, they pay out a 2% dividend every year, or about $20,000. So then you can see that if it's a little bit larger, which I'm hoping it will be, say, in 5 or 6 years, which is the point at which I can take the money out, 59.5, you can take money out without any penalties. It might be maybe $1.5 million, still paying a 2% dividend means I get $30,000 in dividends. So now something super cool happens, which is I can toggle all those from reinvest to cash. I can take $30,000 out every year and live on $30,000. And I think that, granted, in San Francisco or New York, you couldn't live on $30,000. But, in the outer Bay Area or other places, in the United States, if I wanted to go to Oregon or something, you could live on $30,000 a year, and it keeps paying you $30,000 a year, even as it continues to grow. So that's the other really cool thing. So that's just neat, right? Because that means, if I live on, say, $25,000, and have $5,000 extra, I can go to Europe every single year if I want.
Right, exactly.
Right, or if I want to buy some classic Mercedes and rebuild it or something, whatever.
Yeah, and I think that's important to live below your means too. Like
yes.
that is something that we just don't see, because you want to keep up with the Joneses. You want to do what your friend is doing in comparison. Comparison is what really has gotten me into a lot of things that I didn't need to be in. Buying a lot of things that I really didn't need to buy. You're buying stuff to impress people that don't even know you, or maybe that don't even like you. So it's living below your means, which that has been a staple in me and my wife's minds for a while. And we're finally at the point where we're doing that. And that is And then, like you're saying, when you continue to make more money, you still continue to live off of less. Then you can invest